credit cards cause you to spend more money than you normally would. They're wanting me to spend the money now and then probably regret it later, obviously. So obviously when we get into these holidays and different periods of time throughout the year where spending and buying things is on the uptick, right? Where a lot of people are out buying and shopping. And even when you're not, even when it's just a regular Tuesday, right? There are different strategies you can use to avoid spending more than maybe you would have wanted to spend. And we're going to go ahead and go through a lot of these practical tips in this segment here. The first one that I have for you is sticking to the list. If you go shopping or grocery shopping and you're just buying groceries, stick to the list. Come up with a plan for what you want to buy before you go shopping. That way, when you're there, you're not enticed or drawn in by the different advertisements or the different sales or the interesting colors or whatever. I don't know what draws your attention and makes you buy what you buy, but regardless of the tactics that they're using, if you stick to a list, you won't be drawn into those things as often. So if it's not on the list, we're not buying it, and that'll keep you from overspending when you go to the store. It's a very practical idea. It can be sometimes tedious, but when I get my wife on here to talk during a segment, we can talk about why a list is great and why it's worth putting in that extra time, because it's not just about overspending, but it's also about keeping that grocery bill low week after week, month after month in a very consistent manner. The next tip I have for you is to sleep on it. What I mean by this is we have a lot of online shopping. Obviously, my wife and I are going to be doing a lot of that very soon when it comes to Black Friday and Cyber Monday and all that kind of stuff. When you find stuff on the internet, put it in the cart, and if you're not 100% sure you really want to buy it, let it sit in the cart. Give it about 24 hours, go ahead and sleep on it, and then the next day, open up your cart and look at that item, and if you still feel like you really, really need it, then maybe it's worth buying. And if you're looking at it and thinking you probably do without, then go ahead and just remove it from the cart or put it in the save for later spot or whatever. Place it somewhere so that you're not going to end up buying it and then regretting later that you bought something that didn't really matter. The next tip that I have for you, besides sleeping on it, is to use a debit card. Now, this one kind of comes from Dave Ramsey. So Dave Ramsey uses the envelope system where you use cash and then you would take the envelopes there and you'd buy, and then once the money runs out in the envelope, then you're done, right? You can't buy any more. The problem is that a lot of places aren't using as much cash, right? A lot of them are card these days. And on top of it, it can be very inconvenient to go around buying things with cash all the time. So the next best trick is to use a debit card. Studies have shown that credit cards cause you to spend more money than you normally would if you were using a debit card. And I believe the reason why is that the consequence of spending that money is more immediate when you use a debit card compared to a credit card. Think about it. When you use a debit card, it goes right to the bank, and sometimes the transaction goes through the very same day or a day later. If you use a credit card, you spend the money, nothing changes in your bank account, you forget about it, and then about a month later you get the statement and now you have to pay for it. So, because the consequence is much later on, we often don't think that the consequence applies. Or as Dave Ramsey says, it doesn't feel like we're actually spending money. So that's why I highly recommend, if you find yourself overspending very often, don't use a credit card, use a debit card, because you're going to see that expense happen much sooner, and If you don't have the money in your bank account, there's obviously further consequences such as overdrafting, or if you have protection for that, it's going to simply deny your card and not allow you to spend that money. So again, use a debit card. I'm sure it'll help you out with your overspending challenges. The next one on the list is turn off notifications. So this goes back to that sleeping on it tip that I mentioned earlier. So we all have phones. I'm holding mine right now as I go through and talk to you with this. And we often have shopping apps on our phones, whether it's the Walmart app or the Amazon app or whatever. And those apps have push notifications. So those apps will push out different sales and deals that they're having, and they'll push that out onto your phone, and that will entice you to spend money where you shouldn't be spending it. So turn off the push notifications. Or, better yet, if you want to, you can go ahead and uninstall those apps, because that'll keep you from overspending and having those apps entice you on your phone to spend money that you don't otherwise have. I mean, think about it. It's like a mini advertisement on your phone every single day. I get these Amazon notifications talking about how there's a sale on this particular item that I looked at 3 weeks ago, or that's in my cart, or it's in my wish list. They're wanting me to spend the money now and then probably regret it later, obviously. So I would highly recommend getting rid of the notifications if that is something that is drawing you in and making you spend money where you don't want to spend it. The next one kind of goes back to the stick to the list tip, which is checking your inventory. So before you go grocery shopping, check your kitchen, see what you already have, and then of course, stick to the list. This is an important one because oftentimes when we go shopping, we forget what is at home, and we may think, do we have apples at home? I can't remember. Are they going bad? I don't know. Let's just go ahead and buy apples now just in case. And then we return home and we discover we have a whole bunch of apples and they're not bad. And we just wasted a ton of money on new apples that we didn't need. So do an inventory check, see what you have, make sure that you don't put those things on your list, and then go to the store and buy what you actually need. So it's an excellent way to avoid overspending, because there's a lot of people, they buy things they don't need, it rots in their kitchen, and then they end up having to throw it away, and it was wasted money. So instead, double check, do an inventory check. And I mean, honestly, this is what businesses do all the time. Stores, they do inventory checks because they want to make sure they know what's in the building and what they need to buy and what they don't need to buy. When employees, so I did Lowe's for a summer job this past summer, when we would move items from the top of the shelves down, from top stock down to the main area where customers could buy it, we would have to log that into our phones, letting the system know that we moved product down because they needed accurate inventory numbers. So if businesses need accurate inventory numbers to avoid overspending on things they don't need, then it's the same for us as well. We should be making sure we understand what's at home so we're not buying things we don't need out in the stores. All right. I have one more tip for you before we move on to the last segment. So this tip is take away the convenience of online shopping. So if you're about to buy something that maybe you don't need, if you have to type in your address and type in your name and type in your debit card information, your credit card information, and go through all the hassle of filling that stuff out, that may be an impediment to keep you from spending money on an item that really doesn't matter to you anyway. But if you have that convenience there where everything's already saved, then when you have that impulsive need to buy something and you click on it, right? And then the very next second you buy it, Well, it's too late at that point. You've spent the money. I mean, sure, some apps, right, you can go back and you can try to get a refund and things like that. But for most people, once they do that impulse buy, they've gone through the transaction and they click buy and now it's coming to their house. That's it. That's the end of the story. They're not going to refund it per se. So to keep yourself from spending that money in an impulse buy and then regretting it later, make it where you actually have to fill out the paperwork, because then it'll be an inconvenience. And if it's inconvenient, it may stop you from spending money on that thing. It reminds me of a story of a coworker of mine, actually, at the school I work at. I don't even remember what we were buying. Oh yeah, it was a DoorDash order, you know, that kind of thing, where they were going to bring the food to the school and a delivery. And the coworker was trying to order online, and their convenience pay, I think they were using Apple Pay or something like that, where it was super quick that they could just spend, it wasn't working. And they were going to have to fill out all of the information in order to buy the food. And she said, it almost makes me not want to do it. And the thought crossed her mind of actually just bringing to school a packed lunch and not actually spending the money. So that's like a real life example of somebody. I mean, granted, she did end up going and buying the product, but still, it's an example of it could slow you down. It could stop you from spending money where you don't actually want to spend it. So this shopping season, when you got all these things going on, all these advertisements and all these deals, and you're trying not to spend more than you should, go ahead and keep those tips in mind and try to put them to practice.